Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Brandy McCrae. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and I am with TLF in many capacities. I've created my own title called a synergist. I help bring all the pieces together in TLF. And welcome to the webinar today. I am going to give a brief overview of just what we're planning to do in the webinar before I hand it over for Annie to introduce herself. Um, if you could put in the chat so we can see the chat where you're coming from, if you can share who you are, where you're coming from, and if you know the Indigenous territory that you're currently located on, that'll help us ground into the session today. As I said, I'm Brandy McCrae. I'm currently in Surf City, North Carolina, and the Indigenous people, the main ones that lived around here were the Tuscaro people. These were their hunting grounds where I'm currently living. And for today's webinar, we are going to do some brief introduction. So I just introduced myself, and then I'll hand it over to Annie to introduce herself and introduce the play. Then we're going to do an experiment where we're going to watch a recording together of this play being read, of one of the plays being read, a part of the play. And then after that recording, we are going to take questions and answers, any Q&A from the folks in the webinar. And yeah, I think that's all for me for my introduction, and I'll hand it over to you, Annie, to share about yourself and also the play.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandy, and thank you to everybody who is here today. And I wanted to explain why this course is important to me. And it goes way back to when I was in my 30s, working in an Indigenous community adjacent to where I lived, out on the west coast of Vancouver Island, on the west coast of Canada. It's the furthest land you can take out west. And I was working on the res, or the reservation, or reserve, as we call it in Canada. And part of my job was to advocate for the Indigenous children in the public school system. And one of the little boys was really struggling with his classroom environment. And so I negotiated with the principal to invite his family to come and have a meeting. And I was coming from, the do-gooder white colonial perspective. And even though I knew about residential schools, I hadn't really taken it in, you know. And so the mom and dad arrived at the school, and they were going to go in with their little boy and talk to the principal, and I was going in with them. And the dad was sitting in the car, and he wouldn't get out. And finally, he forced himself to open the door of the car and get out. And he forced himself to take a few steps towards the school. And then he stopped, and he was as white as a ghost. He was shaking from head to foot. He could not make himself go one step closer. And that was when I finally put all of the pieces together and realized that this man was absolutely terrified. He was terrified for himself. He was terrified for his son. And he was powerless to be able to move forward, to protect the little boy he had been, to protect the man he was now, and to protect his children. And that really hit me. And even when I talk about it now, I can remember standing there and witnessing that and going, holy fuck. There's stuff I just don't understand and I can never experience. And so that learning, which goes way back to when I was a young woman, has underlaid everything in my life since then. And so over many years, I've been fortunate to be in a position where I was teaching theater and teaching plays by Indigenous playwrights, and realizing that when we read these plays out loud together, we could enter into the world of Indigenous children and in Indigenous families and their elders and the whole residential school experience, which otherwise is it's that one remove, and suddenly when you're reading it, you're there. And I thought, this is powerful. This is something that as settler people, no matter where we come from in the world, we can actually begin to understand what we have done and our ancestors have done to Indigenous people in our own countries, in Canada, in the US, and also other countries around the world. So that's where this course comes from. It's had a long trajectory, and I really honor and appreciate greatly the Indigenous elders who worked with me, who supported me and taught me very gently some very hard lessons. And so part of the reason I'm doing this is because I know it's my responsibility to pay back. This is reciprocity. This is I give back for what I've been given. And so then I choose to do that by sharing with other people in ways that hopefully will help them understand and be willing to enter into a relationship of reciprocity themselves. So that's me. And the course looks at 6 plays by different Indigenous playwrights. These are playwrights from across Canada, many of whom I've met and had the opportunity to interact with. And each play is completely different from the others. Some take place in residential schools, some take place years later, and the characters are really varied. So each play is a different experience. And we will look at one play each week. And your responsibility, if you take the course, is to read the play we're going to be studying, read it ahead of class so that you are prepared. And then once we get into class, we're going to follow an Indigenous format. The class is structured basically as a talking circle. And we will always do a check-in, a talking circle check-in. Everybody will have a talking piece that you will choose, and we pass our talking piece on to the next person. And so we'll do a check-in, and then we'll start reading from the play. We may not read the whole play, but we will read excerpts of it, and then we'll do a debrief at the end. So that's basically how the class works, but it's all in circle. And the webinar today, how I figured the best way to try and explain how this course works is to show you. And so 4 extra people than me, really wonderful people volunteered to be part of a Zoom session where we would actually read from one of the plays. And so I'll introduce them in a minute and they will introduce themselves. But the play that we're going to read from is from this book, Plays About Residential Schools, and it's called Strength of Indian Women. And Brandy, do you want to bring up the slides
Yes,
that you
I'm going to
want?
bring up the slides. Let me start the slideshow. And share my screen. Okay, let's.
Okay, great. Oh, we have an echo.
Oh no, there's an echo.
Yeah, there's an echo. Well, at least I know it's gone now.
Okay.
Good. So this is a picture of St. Eugene's School, residential school. It's in Cranbrook, British Columbia, which is just over the border from the US. And it's in the Kootenay Territory. And the Kootenay tribes extend from Canada right down the Columbia River. And so as those of you that are aware of how the continent works, we have this artificial line right across the middle, but travel the way the rivers flow, it's north south. The mountains go north south, and so the First Nations communities, also extend across the border. So anyway, I thought it was a really good introduction to the course, because the story, written by Vera Manuel, is from the perspective of elders, of women who attended this particular residential school. The school was open from 1890 to 1970. There were other residential schools across Canada that didn't close until the 1990s, but this closed in 1970. And these elders would have attended this school probably in the 1960s, 1950s, 60s. And I want to give a shout out to the publisher who gave us permission to print copies for the readers and to share this with you today. So the characters, well, first I'll read this from the author. Thank you, Brandy, for coming back. Okay, so this gives you some information about Vera Manuel and why she chose to tell this story. A tremendous responsibility is attached to telling the unresolved grief stories of First Nations people. Words have power. They cause us to feel the emotions of the story they are telling. Stories about the abuse and helplessness of little children in residential school are true stories. Because of this, they are the most difficult to write. I didn't make up the stories told in Strength of Indian Women. They came from pictures my mother painted for me with her words, words that helped me to see her as a little girl in residential school for the first time. Each time we staged a performance of the play, I mourned that little girl who never had a childhood. I mourned the mother missing from my childhood, and I gave thanks for the mother who became my loving teacher in adulthood, who had the courage to say the words I longed to hear. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you when you were a little girl. Other stories came from feelings attached to the little knowledge I had of my father's experience as a survivor of residential school and a tuberculosis sanatorium, worlds of violence and isolation. Finally, the character Mariah and her experience, I believe, came from the ancestors. She spoke in a voice I'd never heard before, and I wrote every word and cried her tears. The responsibility we hold in passing on these stories is to role model a healthy lifestyle for our children, who are always watching us for direction. When we share our life stories, we must create a safe place for those who come to listen, in order not to hurt ourselves or others. Creator, I say thank you, and thank you, Napika, for this lesson. And Vera Manuel wrote this in 1998. This is one of the earliest plays that was written about residential schools that I've been aware of. The two plays in this book are actually from the same period of the 1990s. Okay. And so the play is situated around a 13-year-old girl's coming of age ceremony. And this girl is the granddaughter of the elder Suzette. And the play happens in Suzette's home, in her living room. So the different women in her community gather to participate in Susie's coming of age. So Suzette is the central character and grandmother of Susie. She's a survivor of the residential school system, and her experiences have profoundly impacted her life and relationships. And she has also talked with her friends. They all went through residential school together, and she's convinced them that it now is the time to tell about their experiences. The next character, Eva, is Suzette's daughter and Susie's mom. And she plays a pivotal role because she actually is gathering the stories. That's part of her job, is to be the recorder. And so she's in between the grandparents' generation, grandmother's generation, and her daughter's generation. Susie is 13. She's half girl, half woman, and has been preparing for this coming of age ceremony. And she's very excited about this. Lucy, Mariah, and Agnes. In the scenes that we read, you'll meet Lucy and Mariah. Agnes has yet to appear. They are close friends of Suzette. They all have their own stories. They do not always get along. Suzette is kind of the peacemaker. And you'll see that Lucy and Mariah have issues. And Agnes, who we don't get to meet in the story, but you still hear about her. When she appears, then believe me, the play really takes off. She's kind of like a firecracker coming in to the whole environment. So that gives you a little bit of information about the play. When we read it, how we're doing it is individual readers do not take individual characters. We're actually reading through the script in a circle. And I call this round robin from playing ping pong. So if you can make the association, great. I'm not going to go into it. But the idea is we just keep going around and around, and you'll hear different readers read characters, and our knowledge grows incrementally. And that's really how it works, you know. We learn as we go, and the readers embody these characters. We embody them through our breath, through our voice, and that comes from our body and comes back into us. So this is embodied learning. Brandy, is there anything else about the play that needs to be said?
Oh, thanks, Annie. I think I would just add, if you know those reading the script, they're going to be looking down most of the time in the video. So it might be better just to close your eyes and listen to the audio. There's not a lot going on with the video, but you will get to see the folks that were reading the play. So yeah, if that works better for you to just close your eyes and listen as they go in rounds, that could work too for some folks.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good idea. So I would like to acknowledge the readers who entered into this experiment very, very graciously. So Milt, Dylan, Josette, and Lisa, thank you so much for being part of this and for sharing your experience with everybody in the webinar. The reading and the reflection afterwards takes almost 45 minutes. So feel free to sit back, close your eyes, drink your coffee. And then after the reading is done, we will do a Q&A, which I look forward to. So I'll let Brandy take it away. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, and to that point, I actually can't see our videos right now, Annie, because I'm sharing my screen. So I think I'm going to turn off my video too, and while the screen's playing, and just listen. So I'm going to click this and see if it starts playing itself. Oh, there we go.
Thank you so much for joining me to do this today for the webinar that is now listening to us. And I'd like us just to go around and introduce ourselves. And if you still have your talking piece, you're welcome to use that. So my name is Anne. I have my stone from Vancouver Island, and that's where I am. I am on Vancouver Island, which is on the west coast of Canada, just up above the border between Canada and the US. And I will pass to Josette.
My name is Josette Lovemore, and I have my talking stone from the American River trip, and I live in Portland, Oregon, and I will pass it to Dylan.
My name is Dylan Banker. I have my talking bag made here in Peru, which is where I am. I'm in Lima, Peru, currently traveling. And I will pass it to Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa de Avila. I have a little figure of the Buddha that a friend brought from India, and I'm coming to you from Redwood City, California. And I'll pass it to Milt.
Hi, my name is Milt Markowitz, and I have my ceremonial cup that I do. I drink a glass of water every morning as medicinal and connect with the trees outside and the river. And I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And with that, I'll sit back to Annie.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. So for those of you watching us, what we are going to do is read from the play Strength of Indian Women. And the method of reading is that we're actually going to read in a circle. So we aren't taking on individual characters. We're just reading one after the other to keep the flow of the play going. And so when you are listening to this, you may even want to close your eyes and just listen. And we're going to read the first two scenes of the play. And after we finish that, then we'll do just a bit of a debrief amongst the five of us, and then we'll end the recording and come back into the webinar. Okay, so The Strength of Indian Women, Act 1, Scene 1. All scenes take place in the living room of a house on a reserve over the course of 3 days. Music fades into a darkened stage. Scenes of residential school are projected on the back wall. The room is simple, with a couch, 2 armchairs, a coffee table, a kitchen table, and 2 kitchen chairs. Someone is asleep on the couch. When the last slide is being projected on the wall, Suzette enters the room. She is wearing a nightdress and has just woken up. It is early morning just before dawn. Suzette, an elder, always wakes up early. Her light is the first to go on in the reserve. But first, she potters around her front room in the dark. This is her favorite time of day, before anyone else is awake. She knows every inch of her beloved home by heart. She doesn't need the light to see. She is trying to be quiet, though, so as to not wake her granddaughter, who is asleep on the couch. She is searching for something, digging through tins and bags beside the couch, searching among the books and magazines under the coffee table.
What are you looking for, Granny?
Oh, no, don't wake up. I'm trying to be quiet. I'm looking for pictures of some girls I used to know.
It's still dark. What time is it? He turns on the light, yawns, and stretches. I'll help you look, Granny.
You can go to sleep. Oh, there they are.
Susie, a tall, awkward 13-year-old, wanders off, dragging her blanket behind her. She is at that age of being almost a young woman, but in many ways still a child. Suzette sets her picture aside and from her crouched position by the coffee table, gazes lovingly at her grandchild. Susie almost bumps into her mother, Eva, who is a stern, serious woman in her mid-30s.
I hope you're not going back to bed. It's time to get up.
Oh, Mom.
You should get some wood in and help me start getting breakfast.
Eva, let her sleep just a little bit longer. Susie exits the bedroom.
That's not what you used to tell me. You used to chase me out of bed in the middle of the night.
She's going on a fast for 2 days. She'll need her strength. and all our love.
I'll get some wood.
I brought a whole pile in last night.
You should let Susie do those things. She's young.
That's how I stay young. Here are those pictures I was looking for. She motions to Eva to come sit beside her and hands her a picture. I can't see without my glasses. Suzette searches in her bag for her glasses while Eva describes the picture to her.
It's a bunch of little girls, lots of them, standing in front of a big gray building. There's a priest and a nun standing there with them.
Suzette puts her glasses on and takes the picture.
That's the school I was telling you about. St. Eugene's Residential School. That building still stands there. All our cheap DIA houses are falling down, but that building still stands there, reminding us. How old do you think these girls are?
They look younger than Susie, about 8 or 9. A few of them look older.
I was looking all over for this picture. I wanted you to see it. You were asking about Lucy. I'm going to show you a picture of Lucy when she was a young girl. She was a really pretty girl. See? There's Lucy there.
Lucy, a pretty girl? Yeah, she sure was, but she don't look like that today. What happened to her eye? And that arm that's all messed up?
Joe Sam did that to her. Joe was her husband, and he was real mean. He died long before you were born. Nearly took that eye out, and he broke that arm so many times it would never lie straight again. He was so jealous. She never did nothing for him to be jealous about. She only had that one baby that wasn't his, and she took such good care of his babies, the ones that weren't hers. He always loved babies. She was a good mother.
Sure does sound like he was really mean.
He'd be in jail today if he was still alive. Every time he got drunk, he beat her. I don't know what made that man so mean, except he never would let her forget about that one baby that wasn't his.
Wasn't there a story that he had a baby and she had a baby in residential school?
Suzette looks uneasy, but she nods.
Whose baby was it? The silence is broken by a loud noise, the sound of a bucket and some tools being dropped. Eva is startled, but Suzette is used to these interruptions and a grand entrance. Lucy, an elder who looks very strong and fit in her gumboots and work clothes, enters loudly, her voice startling in the early morning quiet.
Stop by to see if you wanted to go across the road with me. I'm going to fix that little bit of fence that's fallen down by Joe's grave. Huh? You got company? Oh, I better get to work before it gets too late. And so Lucy begins to hurry away.
Lucy, I told you Eva and Susie were staying for a few days. Lucy, come back here. I'm talking to you. We're having Susie's coming of age celebration. She's going to become a young woman. You come back later today. You are going to help, aren't you?
Yeah. I got lots of work to do. I'll come back tomorrow.
No, Lucy, you come back today. You help us with Susie. She'll be real disappointed if you're not here.
I have to go now. It's getting late. I've got lots of work to do. She exits.
She doesn't have anything to do. She's just pretending she's busy. She spends all her time in that graveyard visiting her babies and Joe.
She scared me, sneaking up on us like that. Do you think she heard?
Suzette silenced her with emotion. She says she's deaf. Suzette sits
down and picks up the picture again.
I've thought about it a long time, and I talked to the others. We decided you need to know everything about the school and about us. You need to know because of Susie. It's her history, too. Eva is grave and respectfully silent, listening. Everybody suspected it was the priest who did that to Lucy. Not just Lucy. Other girls had babies, too. Lots of babies buried behind the school, buried behind the schoolyard. He never would talk about it, though. That baby died anyway. same as all her other ones. He had 14 babies, all of them by Joe except for that one baby. Her daughter, Angeline, was the only one who got killed in that car accident last winter. He was the last one. There's no one left. It's just us. We're all the family she's got.
Oh, Mom, that's sad. Why did she marry Joe when he was so mean to her?
She had no choice. It was arranged by her people. He was a widower with small children, and she was pregnant with no husband. It wasn't easy in those days for a woman to get by on her own. Joe never had an easy life either. His parents died when he was a baby, and he was passed from relative to relative, nobody really wanting him. Must have been someone hurt him real bad when he was little. The way they used to beat those boys in that school, it's a wonder they didn't all turn out mean.
Just Susette focuses her attention back to the picture. Can you pick out which is me? Right there, the pretty one.
The one with a nice haircut, eh?
That's my bowl cut. I still wear my hair like that sometimes when I get tired of braiding it. Both women laugh. And the other picture here is of me in that white buckskin dress.
Mom, you are so beautiful. Is that the dress Susie's going to wear to her feast?
That's the one. The deer hides were brought from the hunt by my grandfather and tanned and sewn together with beads and shells by my grandmother. I was a girl like Susie when this dress first came to me. I can still see my grandmother. I made this special for you, she said, and she slipped it over my head. It was so soft. She took me outside to show Grandpa. He told me a story about the hunt, that the deer just stood and waited for him, like they knew they were offering up their lives for something special. They made me feel special. Pass.
Susette is far away as she speaks, as though she has gone back to that time. Eva is very quiet and still. She doesn't want to break her mother's concentration. Susette picks up the picture of the girls again and continues. As she speaks, the light fades, and a slide of the picture of the girls in the school lights up on the back wall. Mother and daughter talk quietly in the background. You know, out of all these girls, there must only be a handful of still alive. Most of them died, pretty violent too. Alcohol, suicide, murder. This one here, her name was Annie. She got murdered in the city. She was Agnes's friend, and Agnes was my best friend. Here's Agnes here.
That's Auntie Agnes? Yes, she still looks like that. She's got a bowl cut too. The women laugh. Blackout.
Scene 1.2. Late afternoon of the same day, Susie and Suzette sits on the couch, unpacking the white buckskin dress that Susie will wear at her celebration feast after her fast. Susie is dressed in a long, flowing ribbon dress and moccasins. She has special paint on her face. She's waiting for her aunties to take her to the lodge. She is excited about her fast, and especially about the celebration feast. Eva is on the floor, packing a small bundle for Susie, consisting of her medicine, smudge, cup for water, a towel, and a light blanket.
Granny, it's so beautiful.
You have to be careful with it. Some of these beads may be loose. I'll get your mom to repair it before you put it on. She holds up the dress for Susie to see the fit.
How old is this dress if it was made by my great-great-grandmother?
I was 9 when I first wore this dress, and I'm 67 now.
That would make it 58 years old. And if we take good care of it, your daughter will wear it to her feast.
Did you wear this dress, Mom, at your feast?
No, I didn't have one.
But how come?
I suppose that was my fault. We quit having coming-of-age ceremonies when your mom was a girl. People were afraid of Indian ways back then.
Was that sad for you, Mom?
No, I didn't know about those things then, so I didn't miss it. But I always wanted this for you. You'll make up for the feast I never had. A light knock on the door, and Suzette answers it.
Why, Mariah, come in. What have you got there? Let me help you. That box looks heavy. Susie, your aunties are here. They're just pulling up. You better hurry. Don't forget your bundle. Come and give me a big hug. Suzette sets the box on the coffee table and gives Susie a long hug.
I'll see you in 2 days.
I'll be down to visit you later. You listen to the aunties and do everything they tell you.
I will. Susie gives Mariah a hug. Mariah stiffens slightly. She's not used to touches and hugs, but she loves Susie and pats her on the cheek. Hi, Granny. Mariah, bye. Will you come later too? Mariah nods.
I'll be down there as soon as I can, too. Don't worry about anything. The aunties will take really good care of you. And if you need to know anything, you just ask. They can tell you everything you need to know. Are you excited? Eva and Susie's eyes glisten with tears and excitement.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. You better go. Susie exits. Eve gets to the table and sits down to make bread. She is silent and unobtrusive, dutiful and listening.
Isn't this wonderful, Mariah? Our little baby girl is all grown up.
I brought jars of canned peaches for Susie's feast. I canned them up in the summertime. I was hoping we could talk. I haven't been sleeping very good again. Every time I close my eyes, I see something. I was hoping you could give me more of that medicine.
About you. Why didn't you let me take you to that person I was telling you about? This medicine I got here, all it will do is help you to sleep. It can't take care of the real problem. It can't take care of what's troubling you in your heart. Mariah nervously tugs at a gold cross that hangs from a chain around her neck.
I can't go there, Suzette. I can't go against the church like that.
Mariah, it's not going against the church. This person I'm telling you about is a very spiritual person too, and I can't believe the things she does is anything against the church. She's a very respectful, very kind and loving person. She knows about dreams, Mariah. She knows those kinds of dreams that haunt you. I wish you would trust me on that. You know, I'd never do anything to hurt you.
While Suzette and Mariah talk, Eva is working. Lucy enters silently this time. Mariah's back is to her, so she can't see her.
I know, Suzette. Maybe if I pray on it. I know what to do. I'll leave it up to the Lord. He'll tell me what to do. Lucy's entrance is suddenly dramatic and loud. Startled, Mariah tries to hide behind Suzette.
Oh, Lord, what has the Lord got to do now? Lucy chuckles to herself and mocks Mariah. Mariah stays as far away from her as she can. Suzette attempts to calm Mariah while coaxing her not to leave.
Lucy, quit that now. Mariah, come back. At least wait until I get your medicine. It'll only take a few minutes to prepare.
Why are you wasting good Indian medicine on her for? You know she don't believe in it. Besides, the Lord might get upset, and heaven knows what he might do to you. He might strike you dead.
Mariah is at the door by this time and crosses herself. She is horrified at what appears to be a blasphemous comment by Lucy. Lucy, pleased with herself and the reaction that she's getting from Mariah, snickers and chuckles all the way to the couch, where she continues to carry on, mocking Mariah's sign of the cross.
Lucy, will you sit down and be quiet? This conversation's got nothing to do with you. Suzette speaks soothingly to Mariah. As she speaks, Lucy sneaks up to Mariah behind Suzette's back and yanks at her shirt, then hurries back to the couch. The last action by Susie unnerves Mariah, who promptly heads for the door. Suzette follows her. Come back later. Oh.
Come back later. I'll have your medicine ready for you by then. And don't mind what Lucy says. Honestly, I don't know what gets into that woman sometimes, but you've got to stand up to her. If you raise your voice to her once, she'll leave you alone.
I'll come back later after she's gone. Do you think she'll be gone by then?
You come back whether she's here or not. You stop running from her. Maybe she'll leave early, although it's hard to get her out of here once she gets started.
Mariah exits. Lucy is still chuckling to herself. She's had great fun at Mariah's expense. This sums up Lucy's character. There are not many people who can get close to her or who are not intimidated by her.
Why can't you leave her alone? You just do that because you know she's timid, and you make fun of her religion because you know it's something she cares deeply about.
I'm just getting back at her for that residential school.
You think it wasn't hard for her in there too? If you only knew.
Yeah, it must have been really hard being the favorite. You should hear the way she talks about the place sometimes. You'd think it was a Newcastle hotel and we were royalty, the way she describes it. That's probably the way it was for her. But it sure wasn't that way for us Black Indians.
Oh, Lucy, your bitterness is going to eat a hole right through you. Be quiet a minute. I've got to prepare this medicine, and you know I must have only good thoughts while I'm doing it. Sing with me that song that we always sing so well. It's a good, strong song.
One more thing about that medicine. Do you think it's a good idea to be giving it to Mariah?
Lucy, think good thoughts, and I really want to hear that song. Think of something happy, Lucy. It always sounds much better when we're happy. Think of Susie in the lodge and all the things that she's learning to become a strong woman, young woman, and everything.
Okay, you fix the medicine and I'll help you sing. As Suzette and Lucy sing, all the grief seems to drain from Lucy's face. She becomes calm and peaceful. When the song finishes, they are silent, lost in their happy thoughts, until Lucy spots the picture of the girls in residential school on the coffee table in front of her. Immediately, her agitation is renewed. Who's this? Who are all these kids?
That's us in the residential school. Eva, come and show her the ones we picked out. She hasn't got her glasses, so you'll have to point them out for her.
Eva approaches cautiously, bringing a tray with a pot of tea, cups, milk, and sugar.
This is Mom, and this one is Agnes, and that's you, I think.
That's not Agnes. She didn't look like that. I don't think I'm in this picture.
Sure, Lucy, that's Agnes. She's standing right next to me, and Annie's standing on the other side of her, and you're standing down there.
Huh, maybe it is. I don't know. Here.
Lucy hands the picture to Suzette, who props it up on the table. Lucy ignores Eva's attempt to serve her tea and starts poking around in the other things on the table.
I brought you a cup of tea, Lucy. What would you like in it? Eva looks helplessly at Suzette and sits their tea down, careful not to get too close to Lucy.
You have to talk really loud when you talk to her. Sometimes she pretends she's deaf, especially when she's not wearing her glasses. She uses lots of cream, like me, and put 4 spoonfuls of sugar in there.
Do you need anything else here? If you don't, I'm going to go work on my beading. I want to get Susie's moccasins done before Agnes gets here. She's bringing a cape, so I want to make sure everything is ready for Susie's feast.
You go ahead, Eva. We'll drink our tea and visit. Eva sets her beating supplies out and begins to work. She always keeps herself busy the way she was taught. Lucy is upset and makes like she's going to leave.
What? What? Did she say Agnes is coming? Is that what she said? I don't want to be here when she gets here. Agnes, huh?
Sit down, Lucy. She's not going to be here for some time. Stay and visit. Besides, you two should bury the hatchet. Try to get along.
You know where I'd like to bury that hatchet. Suzette is skilled at soothing Lucy's ruffled feathers. She coaxes Lucy to stay by tempting her with Eva's bread. Lucy's still standing and is not going to give in too easily.
Hush now, Lucy. Come sit back down and relax. Eva's going to cook some bannock. She could even make some fry bread with strawberry jam. You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Well, okay. I could eat some fry bread. I'm not very hungry though, but I guess I could eat something.
You want to keep going, Milt?
Lucy is almost lulled into forgetting about Agnes, but suddenly she remembers some real or imagined slight and becomes agitated all over again. She jumps out of her chair and begins her harangue. Just as long as that Agnes don't start telling me what kind of an Indian I should be. When she comes, like she's some kind of expert or something, talking about First Nations. And what was that other one? Or Aboriginal. Just because she travels around the country doesn't mean she knows everything. Lucy sits down close to Suzette and speaks in a conspiratorial tone. I wonder if those people she talks to know she used to be an alcoholic and a prostitute. Used to live down there on Skid Row. If it hadn't been for us who took her in, she'd still be down there.
Hush, Lucy. What makes you so hateful? You know Agnes has worked hard for what she's got, and she deserves to have a good life. She's never said a mean word to you or about you, and I'm sure if you wanted to travel around, she could set it up for you. She's always been generous that way. Anyway, she's never tried to hide what's in her past, and people love and respect her for that. Lucy turns away abruptly. She hates it when Suzette defends Agnes. Come on now, Lucy. Let's talk about something else. My daughter Eva, she goes to college and she's been doing some studying about Indians. She's gathering lots of material, and I told her that the best person she could talk to in the area was you, that you know everything about the history around here.
I guess I do know the history, probably better than anyone. I probably could travel around too and talk about the history. I'm probably the only one who could talk about it, seeing as I'm the only one who never left from around here. I've lived here all my life, never went out the city, not once.
That's what I told Eva. The best person for you to talk to would be Lucy Sam. Hey, Eva, isn't that right? Eva sets her beating aside and pulls out a notepad she always keeps close by. She sits attentively, respectfully.
Your daughter, she doesn't speak Indian though, huh? I couldn't tell it to her all in English. It's too bad she don't speak Indian.
I know, but I could interpret for her, and she does understand some.
I guess I could sit down with her someday if she tells me what it is she wants to know.
I'm really interested in anything about the residential school.
Lucy stiffens and moves close to Suzette. Did she say the residential school? I could tell her some things about that, and she can't write it down, not all of it. She turns her attention back to Eva. There's some things that you shouldn't write down. There's just some things that I shouldn't tell you. And Eva put her notepad away.
But we
agree.
agreed.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. But we agreed that we have to tell them sometime. Lucy, that's their history. They have a right to know.
what they're going to do. What are they going to do with it? Sell it? Eva flinches. Suzette is dismayed.
Lucy, it's her birthright and it's part of her education. She's been going to school and coming back here every summer for a long time to get an education. You have to give her credit for that. Lucy whispers conspiratorially to Suzette.
Want me to tell them everything? What about the priest? What about what he done? You want they should know about that?
They know more than we think they do. And we made a promise that we were going to tell them everything. I know it's hard, Lucy, but we really must. When Eva speaks, they both jump, as though they'd forgotten that she was there. Her words are gentle, yet strong, yet and determined. She is not afraid to tell the truth.
Tell me what? What is it that you're afraid to tell me? That he molested little girls? The old ladies cover their eyes and Lucy turns away, her back to Suzette. Suzette approaches her cautiously, weighing every word. Eva sits very still, drawing in every word, and rocks gently, cushioning them softly against her heart. These words, she knows, are sacred. Flute music begins.
You know, Lucy, in your heart, you know why Agnes went off to the city and became what she did. She didn't have any people to go home to. They all died of smallpox, or else they were drinking. She had no one but us. And we weren't much for helping one another back then. I remember the day she and Annie left. I went down there and saw them off at the Greyhound. I already had 2 babies, and all I had was $5. I slipped it into Agnes's hand, and I made her promise to write me every day. She didn't want to take the money, but I wouldn't let her give it back. She cried, and she said I was the only family she had. Annie, she was just anxious to get on the bus and get out of town before her uncle discovered she was gone. It must have been hard for Annie, being the only girl in that family of men and all that drinking. I stood there and watched till the bus was out of sight. I was thinking I'd never see those girls again, and it was like losing a piece of myself. If it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have survived that school. Agnes was my big sister.
I was one of those girls who got caught with Agnes when she ran away. It was her fault we got caught. She was too soft-hearted. One of the other girls, Monica, she went and fell down and hurt herself, and Agnes wouldn't leave her behind. Nobody wanted to go on without Agnes, so we all waited there until they caught up with us. I've always blamed her for that beating. Gregorian chant begins. Lucy stands and moves slowly to center stage, gathering her strength. Pass.
If it wasn't for that priest, I wouldn't have even run away. It was the first time he ever got me alone. The other girls always wanted me never to go alone with him, but I was on dorm duty and sister sent me to get sheets from the storage room, and he was waiting there. He rubbed his tongue all over my mouth before he let me go. Gregorian chant ends. Agnes found me throwing up behind the stairs. He cleaned me up. She told me she was going to run. He said some others were going to go with her, and if I wanted to, I could go along. It didn't take me long to decide to go along. We almost made it over the mountains when they caught us. Lucy is weary, disappointment in her body. She moves back to the couch and sits down. He speaks with a sense of betrayal. Our own people brought us back. Suzette sympathizes briefly with Lucy, then stands and moves to center stage to tell the rest of her story.
They made us clear away the tables and chairs in the cafeteria. There was Mariah, Julia, Helen, Molly, and me. We didn't know for sure what was going on, but we heard somebody saying that they had caught the runaways and they were going to punish them. They sounded the bell. A handheld bell rings 3 times and flute music begins. and called us girls to stand in a circle in the cafeteria. I saw the sisters bringing you in one at a time, holding you down so you couldn't get away. I heard your screams and cries, and I heard that whip slicing through the air, cutting through your flesh. We tried to close our eyes, but those sisters standing among us forced us to open them and look. The whole top of my dress was soaked with tears. Pass.
Suzette moves back to the couch and sits down, holding the tears to her chest. Lucy stands to deliver the rest of her story with all the power she needs to conjure up the image and destroy it. They took turns whipping us. When one of them would get tired, another would step in. They were harder on Agnes because she said she was the ringleader and because she wouldn't cry. I wanted to tell her to cry so they would stop, but she wouldn't cry. The priest was yelling at her, "Cry, cry, cry," but she wouldn't. Then I noticed a trickle of blood running down her leg, and when she fell, it smeared on the floor. She had started her period, started bleeding, and still they wouldn't stop. Lucy returns to the couch to sit down. She is weary and broken herself in this moment. They broke her that day. Lights begin to fade. A slide of girls in school comes on. The women continue to speak as the stage fades to black.
They broke her body, they broke her heart, but they never broke her spirit. Agnes' spirit lives inside each one of us.
It was my cousin Julia who told me Agnes was on the skids. She hit the skids real hard after Annie was murdered.
And we'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you so much for reading. We're going to just do a brief check-in circle to see how this was for everybody reading it. And then we will end the recording. I'll start. I find reading this way, I get to experience a bit of every person in the story, and that I realize how complex it is because it pulls up so much out of me to read these words and to feel the presence of these women. So I find it very powerful and exhausting too. I'm tired from the experience. And I'll pass to Milt.
Yeah, I had an interesting experience because I found myself focusing on the words when it was my turn to read. And then I would find the words even more impactful, I think, because I'd changed my focus back to the content and the hurt and the anger and the all the feelings that were expressed. And I'll pass it to Lisa.
My little talking piece. I find it actually a little bit hard to read just because I get caught up in these feelings that I have from school. And Annie, when you spoke briefly about a man who couldn't go into a school because it was a residential school, that just spoke so strongly to me. And I thought, wow, to not even be able to step into a school because it was so traumatic. And my experience certainly wasn't like that. But I just have strong feelings that are very unpleasant about my schooling. And so for me to be in a circle and to be in just which feels, like I'm using school skills like reading, makes me a little uneasy and uncomfortable. Yeah. And I'll pass to Gisette.
Having read through this script once before, I thought I understood it and had it down. But reading it first person is very different. And living in their experience, reading it aloud as an I was very different. And it's impactful. And some things really strike me, like they have their own medicine and yet they give the power to the church and they don't utilize their own things that they know are useful and good, and how the church took over their belief systems and their belief in spirit and didn't do good things with it at all. They usurped it, their belief systems. And of course, the piece I read about being sent to these girls being whipped for running away from their tormentors. It's devastating. And I'll pass to Dylan.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to all of you in that there's something much more personal about reading this aloud and saying the words out loud than to what I had before when I just read through this. And I'm glad that I read through the entire play, because there were aspects of the characters that were coming forward as I was reading, to things that I knew about them that hadn't been revealed yet. But that last aspect was pretty devastating to read. Like Josette said, the women being whipped and trying to escape their oppressors. It's there's emotions that there I feel that I implicitly try to step away from and not feel when I read something like this. And having read it out, like having to read it out loud, definitely puts a little bit more more of a personal relationship into it. So yeah, really wonderful. Thank you for putting this together, Annie.
Wow. Well, thank you for reading and bringing yourself to this, and not really knowing how it would be. But I hope that you can take this experience away and that it will have meaning in your lives. And yeah, so I just say thank you. Thank you so much. And
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to end the
Okay.
Yeah.
We're back. Annie, did you want to do like lead us through just like either tapping or breath or something to come back into the space together?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so just where you're sitting, make sure that your feet are on the floor, that your back is straight, and maybe rest your hands on your knees to begin with, and just close your eyes. Inhale deep into your body and exhale through your mouth. So do 3 deep breaths. And then just let your feet run on the spot. Tap them into the floor. Tap your feet into the floor, whole foot. Make sure your heels come down. And as you tap your feet, let your hands bounce up and down on your lap. Then let your legs stop and just run your hands up your body to your face. Give your face and your forehead a little rub and down the back of your head. And spread your arms out and just shake your hands. Shake your hands out. Yeah. Thank you. So we're back in this space together. And I'm happy to take any questions. And I don't know, Brandy, you need to facilitate
Yep,
that.
I got the chat is working now for everyone. You can put questions in the chat, or everyone you can come off mute. You can share that way too. But if there are any questions for Annie about the process, the course, anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share, we'll just hold some space before we close.
So, do we just start talking? Oh, I guess we do.
Yep, go ahead.
Wow. Thank you, Annie. And thank you for that chance to kind of debrief or de-pressure. I felt myself really uptight and kind of anxious and feeling the hurt. And so that was really really helpful to get back. I see that this is a really good way of having some sort of sense of what happened to the young people in these schools. I've read and I've watched movies, and now I've heard a play, and the themes are often the same. And I guess there's in the back of my mind saying, like, how many times do I have to hear this? You know? Like at some point, there should be some sort of resolution, or I'm not sure quite what, to do with it. And my door, I'll leave you to answer that.
Thank you, Cynthia. Yeah, I question in a lot of ways whether there is resolution.
That's right.
I feel like there needs to be a sense of ownership, that we can't own another person's experience, but we can own our responsibility to witness and to hold that for them. And the stories of trauma are in all our pasts. I mean, even if we're settlers where we live, our people came here very often from really horrific situations. And, when I hear the stories of the experience of Indigenous peoples, I remember, the stories from my own family of my great-great-grandfather being found as a 2-year-old underneath the body of his older brother who had frozen to death, keeping him warm, in Poland. And I don't know all of the story of how my great-great-grandfather came to Canada, but that history, is there, and I carry it, even though I'm adopted. So, it's not my bloodline, but somehow I still carry that story in my body. And so we can't let it overwhelm our lives, but I think we need to honor those things. We need to honor the experiences of our ancestors. And because we live in this land and the food that we eat comes from the ground that holds the bones of our ancestors and of Indigenous people. You know, we're in this story too. And it is heavy, but in the acknowledging and the witnessing, I think it frees us in a sense, to own it, to acknowledge it, but to also be able to stand on that ground, and move forward. So I don't know if that's any kind of an answer, but that's what comes to me right now anyway. So thank you, Cynthia, for the question.
I'd like to say something if I might. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Victoria Moore. I'm a Dean of Students at Ubiquity, and I'm just overwhelmed with emotion. That was just extraordinary experience. Thank you so much for sharing the script and reading it, which made it so effective. I've read a lot about the schools and read stories. Kent Newburn, for instance, has written one about various people. And of course, as a psychotherapist, I've worked a lot with trauma and how it affects, if even when it was with your grandparents or with your parents, it affects you too. And as you said in the play, sometimes they weren't not parented very well. And there was a time when the person said, "I'm so sorry, I wasn't there for you." And so there's this is, I have not heard a play that have been written by Indigenous people. I'm so impressed that this is taking place, that you share this with me today, and that there are other plays that I hope that I can hear and read. As you say, Annie, you know, we acknowledge this, we witness, and as we witness it, it sets us free in so many ways. This is one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, to be able to hear this. I'm absolutely thrilled to be asked to join you today. Oh, just all the examples of running away, and the only girl in the family of men, and the boy being found behind the stairs, and what the terrible things the priest had done, and the babies that the girls had, and people running away and being caught even by their own people. And yet this whole coming of age is just extraordinary because, you know, I audited Josette and Ba's Rites of Passage course, and which was so wonderful. And it's so important. And to have this set up as this was for her, and that what she would be wearing, and this old buckskin dress, and sewing on her the beads or whatever on her moccasins. This is the way life should be. And so I just wanted to tell you how impressed I am, and thank you again.
Thank you for your comments, Victoria. I think for those, like when you get to participate in the reading out loud, it is cathartic, because it's coming out of you. You're not taking something in and holding it, it's coming through you. And so you become a vessel, and 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 so you can be filled and you can be emptied, you know. And so there is agency, which I think you don't maybe experience in the same way if you're just listening. So there is I believe, a real healing energy in using your own voice to read, and to do it in a circle, because we are in a circle and we are supporting each other. So those are elements of the course that I think are important to acknowledge. So thank you.
And thank you for reading in a circle too. That's so unusual and so effective, Annie. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who participated. I'm here in Canada, and I first started hearing stories from residential school survivors when I was um, an educator doing my practicum in 2000, and I got a chance to be in the Indigenous education stream at Simon Fraser University with Elder Gwen Point at the Stalo Nation, and we did a part of our practicum there on the Stalo Nation, and the first place that Elder Gwen Point took us was to the residential school, which they kept up as a museum, as a teaching piece there. And that school had just been shut down a few years before. And with the last schools in Canada being shut down in the late 90s, the survivors were they came together and they were really certain that they needed to tell these stories so that this didn't happen again. I grew up with Indigenous friends. I grew up living right beside reserves, and I had no idea that residential schools happened. And I was born in 1975 in Vancouver in the Musqueam territory, and so I think I was about like 25 at the time, and I felt so betrayed that in my entire education, I had no idea that these things were happening to Indigenous kids at the same time that I was attending public schools um, on the same land. Um, so I'm not Indigenous to the lands that I was born on, but I remember feeling quite devastated for my friends and the people that I knew. And hearing these stories, I think, come from Indigenous peoples live, yeah, in the Longhouse. I just felt as a 25-year-old back then that, yeah, it's, there is a certain responsibility that comes with listening to these stories. It's not a quick fix. These things are not going to heal quickly. Um, but one of the things that I think is really important about doing this kind of work that you're doing, Annie, where people are using art forms like storytelling and theater to tell these stories, is that it does help us. I think there's a tendency for us humans to want to not talk about these things because they are so devastating and so difficult and so complex. But these things keep happening in our history as humans because we don't talk about these things. You know, we don't talk about the things that our ancestors went through or the crimes that our own ancestors perpetuated as settlers. And so we do need to talk about these things. We need to tell these stories also, like you said, as a healing piece so that we can actually transmute the trauma that's in our body, in our lineages, so that hopefully the more we do this kind of work as individuals and in community through these art forms, we start to stop these patterns that make it possible for these traumas to keep occurring. So I see this as really like a healing tool, and I'm wondering because I know that you've had lots of decades working in theater and the traveling trickster community. If you've seen or if you've heard people actors talk about like how they've been impacted positively by participating in these kinds of things, and if they've been healing for the actors that have worked with you.
Um, yeah, that's such an important question, Jen. And I think it's different for every person. And um, being a professional actor is a really demanding profession, because you're always bringing your whole being to your work. And unfortunately, in North America, and I include the US and Canada together, there is not space within the professional theater community to hold, just to hold space to acknowledge the work that actors do. You know, it's a job and you're paid and there's a union. And Indigenous actors are really championing their own people and demanding that they are recognized for the depth of this work when they are portraying their own stories and their own history. And I really respect that. And there's quite a lot of resistance, at least in Canada, to the Actors Equity setup. And that the film industry has its own union. So it's not easy. And there also has been a lot of resistance, particularly from young Indigenous women actors who are sick and tired of playing the victim role. I mean, they're sick. I mean, literally, from doing that work because so many of the stories, you know, cast Indigenous women characters as victims. And so there's big questions around this, you know. And so it's very different if you're an Indigenous person doing this work than if you are a non-Indigenous person. And I think it's important to recognize that. And you know, I've experienced the loss of Indigenous theater people, particularly during COVID and with the fentanyl epidemic, and those are huge losses in the community. So yeah, this is why it's so important for us as non-Indigenous people to bear witness and to stand up and say, you do not have to continue to carry this alone. We are carrying this with you. Yeah. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but it's complex and it's painful. And yeah. So thank you for asking that question, Jan.
Well, thank you all for attending today. And Annie, is there any last words? I was going to put the course description in the chat. And for folks, if you're interested on the other plays that are coming, and if you're watching the recording, I'll send it out with the recording and make sure it's posted there too. So Annie we will be doing this course, launching this course where as a group, we'll read through these plays that are in the course description, in the course outline. So stay tuned for more information when that will launch. And then, Annie, is there any last words before we wrap up? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, there is actually. You know, we've gone into really heavy territory in our discussion. And I have to tell you that some of the plays that we're going to read together are absolutely hilarious. They are so full of life and joy, even though there are these very serious and devastating undercurrents. Yeah, because, you know, the kids were kids. And there are all kinds of hijinks and things going on in some of the plays. And so it's actually, I think, sometimes the adult retrospective that brings the darkness. So yeah, it's complex, but I can say you will not be bummed out the whole time in the course.
Yeah.
So,
Just kudos to the one person who wrote this play. It's very well written.
yeah.
Such great depth and interchanges that have just shown too much of us. Too much, not too much, but just so much that's been opened up to us. And I just appreciated it so much. Thank you again.
Thank you, Victoria.
Okay, well, I think we'll close, Annie. Like I said, we'll be sending out information to folks who registered. You'll get the recording, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Victoria. Thanks for joining.